Hey, how you doing?
I'm okay. Trying not to melt.
Yeah.
We skipped spring. We went straight to summer. Today, at least.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Skipped spring and have stayed in the winter.
Oh no! Oh, good Lord! No, what's it doing up there?
Today is not bad, actually. Today is 64.
Okay.
I think yesterday. But for the past couple of weeks, it's been like in the 50s, high 40s. You know, warmer than
nice.
yeah, warmer than winter, but not, not spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would take that. I'd trade that for today's weather.
What's the temperature there?
It said 90. Oh my God.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so I'm not complaining.
Somewhere in America, it's worse, okay? For everybody.
Yes. I would take my 64 degrees with a smile.
Send me some of those cool breezes. Can you send me some cool breezes?
Yeah, I sure would like to. Oh, man. So, yeah, well, I'm glad I didn't get to post the notice that we were about to go live because about 5:05, I restarted my computer. And it went into the update. And the update took longer than I hoped it would take. So that had me starting, getting this set up later than I normally would. So I'm just now, as you were coming in, I was just now kind of like ready to go because when I plugged in the headphones, that caused Zoom to freeze. I was just saying, oh God, I hope it's not one of those nights. I can't take it.
Okay. Oh, boy. Well.
So I thought when the computer was doing the update, I thought I was going to be sending you a message to say, could we start later? But then it seemed like it was moving along. So I said, maybe we'll make it. So I think 6:05, I think we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Considering. Yeah.
Yes. We're just going to press on. We got to get
press on. So let's, you look so light, I can barely see.
If you hold on just a minute, I'm going to close my blinds because I think there might be something going on with my camera, but I don't know. But let me try something. I'll be right back.
Well, whatever just happened.
What's wrong with this thing? Oh my God.
Yeah, you kind of had that ghostly glow going on.
Yeah, I was checking it out. I'm like, I forgot to check to see if maybe my camera, because I noticed that last time. I'm like, is it the lighting in my room? So I turned everything off. I'm like, it's still.
Yeah.
So it might be a camera problem. I want to have to open this thing up.
Yeah.
There it goes again. Okay, it's my camera. I think it's my camera. And it's probably about, stuff on these computers. They go bad.
Uh-huh. I know.
Hope I can get the part. That's all. I just hope I can get the part.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I know what you look like.
Right.
You might be able to just, are you on a desktop?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You might be able to get just one of those little external cameras.
Oh, yeah, the USB camera, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that might not be too expensive, you know.
Yeah, you're right. But
Yeah.
I have OCD. I gotta find out what this problem is about.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I'm Michelle Odom. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. Welcome to session 17 of the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle, the 17th book that we're having public discussions on. The book we are discussing tonight is The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois by Honorée Fanonne Jeffers. And it's a big book, almost 800 pages, and everybody else wimped out except me and Gio. And we are moving through it at a steady clip, aren't we, Gio?
That's right. We're motivated. We are motivated.
That's right. We are troopers.
Oh my goodness.
And you are?
I'm Georgette Moses, and I'm joining you guys from Columbia, South Carolina, land of the boiling peaches. No, that's okay.
So yeah, we are moving through it at a good clip because what we're doing is, so the way this book is structured is Honorée has taken various passages from writings by W.E.B. Du Bois and nonfiction passages of his. And then she writes several chapters related to several fictional chapters related to whatever Du Bois was talking about. And so, so there are 11 of those sections. And tonight we're on section 8. And I did not do an agenda. I did not do any questions. I did not do that word thing I did last time. I forget what it's, tide cloud.
Okay, so you just took the 2 weeks off, for real.
I just really took the 2 weeks off. And not only was this a short section, and I had told you, maybe I would try to get ahead a little bit. I did not get ahead. And I waited until the last couple of days to start reading this section. But despite all that negligence on my part, I did come across something very interesting in this section. And so I want to see if you came across it.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Find the interesting passage in this section.
Ooh, drama. No.
Or how would you summarize this section?
Well,
did you read it, Gio?
I did, and I was so diligent. I read it right after, like 2 days after our last meeting. I'm like, I'm gonna read all this. I'm gonna get ahead, so I can have stuff to say. But there were some powerful things in here, like dealing with trauma, right? Sexual abuse. And also, and then how you're going to process that. And we see that the girls processed it differently. Each one of them processed that trauma differently. Mm-hmm. And then we saw just how close Lydia and Ailey were, and then still are, right? By the end of the section, that she would want to follow her sister down the same path because of grief. And then the Belle as the mother alone, for all intents and purposes, trying to deal with the changes in her life. Her husband has died. Her Coco and her lady have come in to help with Nana, and she has to accept that. She also has to accept letting go of Ailey, letting her fall and fail and find her way back. And then the how we get older, right? And I'm thinking about Uncle Root, how we age and then try to maintain our connections and then try to guide young people along the way. And there was a distinct difference between how Uncle Root dealt with Ailey, and probably the rest of the girls, as well, and her parents dealt with her. So, those were some of the things I picked out. And then there was a historical piece in here as well about, what's her name? An English actress, I guess she was. And she was married to the plantation owner, who was like the worst plantation owner on this side of the sun. And she wrote about him and what a horrible guy he was. And I tried to look up her diary about it, because she wrote it, she wrote it after they divorced, and he took her daughter away from her, and he was trying to front like, he was, this upstanding dude, but when her diary circulated, everybody was like, oh, he's a horrible human being, and his name was trash, as well it should have been. You can't just, mistreat human beings down here on your plantation and think, you're going to go up north and, front and ball like, you're not doing anything. You're just a businessman. So, yeah. So,
well, you got a lot out of it. You picked up on more than I did. I really saw it as largely a story about grief and, kind of the different ways that people deal with it. My first thought, though, was Gia was absolutely right. Lydia is dead. Right? And, and so then the rest of the section to me was mostly dealing with especially the way Ailey was handling the grief. And when Ailey tried to commit suicide, I didn't see that coming. Yeah. I didn't see that coming at all. But then, when I think about Ailey's life experience, the sexual abuse, and the sort of sadness, that leaves you with, it made more sense to me, but I didn't see it coming. So the one thing, so when I look at, in fact, I'm going to bring it up. When I look at, I thought I was going to bring it up, when I look at the song, didn't I open it? Where is it? Song 8. When I look at the song, so I'm reading through the chapters and I'm thinking about the song and I'm not really getting what the connection is. And it's not until we got to that section on the weeping time that it started to connect for me to Song 8. And I don't know why my computer is not opening the picture, because this is a part of what I was telling you. I had restarted the computer and things were a little shaky. So I may not be able to bring it up. But that was the part, the weeping time, that story that really caught my eye. One, because the family's name was Butler. And my mother's maiden name was Butler.
Oh.
So I am a Butler. And so I did my research on that story. And I came across a few things. Some of one, at least one thing I was thinking maybe we could like share the reading of it. Did you see the Atlantic article that I posted?
No, I'm sorry to say.
Okay, so maybe we can share the reading of that.
Okay.
But that's what caught the two things, that it was the Butler name, and that it was the largest slave auction in American history. And I had never heard of it.
Me either.
And that pisses me off. And I always get a little excited when I learn something new.
You nerd.
I know.
But it
also pisses me off when I feel like it's something I should have learned. I should have known somewhere along the line.
Yeah, but there's so much, right? There's so much information, which kind of makes, boggles my mind when you hear people pushing the idea that, the Africans didn't cut, we were as many Africans as they claim were not taken from Africa and brought here. I'm like, ooh, where'd you get that? They were considered property. There are records. They were taxed. Well, where are you getting your information from? So, and people gravitate to this because they don't want to face it, right? They want to apologize. They're apologists. No, that's not. There was only some people, really. Okay. It's very sad that this is what's going to happen. And I'm going to just stick this in here because I saw this today. Prager University now has apps for kids and they specifically, this was on a YouTube commercial, had this nice little white family sitting at dinner, but Bobby was not paying attention. And then suddenly Bobby looked up from his tablet and asked, "What is America racist?" At that, the forks and knives screeched to a halt. And the Prager University guy stepped in and said, "Don't be embarrassed. Your son, your child being, taught these far left radical ideas, then get this Prager, don't sweat," or something like that. Prager University for Kids is here. I'm like, oh my God, now the young people won't even have a chance to sidestep the brainwashing. So. Yeah,
and with this thing going on with abortion, I've been kind of listening to this is off topic, but I've been listening to podcasts pretty much all day that have been talking about that draft Supreme Court decision. And somebody was talking about how, really what we're looking at today is the culmination or the fruition of 50 years of hard labor on the right to create the world, because basically what happened, they were mad. They were mad at all the gains that were made in the 60s, so they were mad at women. They were mad at Black people. They were mad that you want to try to put regulations because you didn't want to stop them from killing the water, killing the environment and poisoning the water. All of that. And so they started working hard in the 70s to fund at a very high level, to strategize, to research through their think tanks, to plot and to plan how they were going to hold on to all of the power that white wealthy men have traditionally been accustomed to. And so now we're here, now we're here. And that if they can overturn Roe, it is a slippery, oily, steep slope to all of our other so-called rights, And so part of the discussion in one of the podcasts today was about a part of that process was they looked at the left and they said, well, y'all got the universities and Hollywood and the media, y'all got that all, locked up. We're not going to really make any inroads there. So they created their own echo chamber, And so what you're talking about with this Prager University app is an example of that. They will not allow themselves to take in anything that they perceive as coming from, the left, anything that we would perceive as truth. They were even talking about how they do their anti-abortion campaigning by running these ads that say people on the left want to have abortions at 9 months. And they show you a picture of a little pretty pink baby. And they say, this is who they want to kill. So the mind fuckery is just, really intense. Really intense.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I don't know if we're going to survive. They're just determined to bring the apocalypse one way or the other. I never seen so many people so determined to believe in a thing.
The rapture.
Yes.
The rapture.
You just want to leave.
The rapture.
Just start with you, okay? If you want to leave, start with you. Leave the rest of us alone. Okay.
Right. But no, and I just always think about, my friend Rick. Mm-hmm. I remember in one of the book group meetings, I don't know if you were there, but Rick said, the only way you can deal with white people is to slaughter them.
Did Rick say that?
Rick said that. And he said that to me other times. And his point is, they're not going to stop. They're not going to back down. And if they have to take you and the planet Earth with them, that's what we're dealing with.
Wow. Well, that's a really catastrophic way of thinking about it.
That's advice from a white man.
Okay, so that, and Rick seems like a really cool guy. So it makes me think about, is this a genetic problem? Okay, is it nature or nurture that makes you gravitate towards such violence?
Yeah.
And such unwillingness to listen, active
to share,
listening, right?
These are men, that have really thousands of years at this point of believing that it is their right to dominate everybody and everything on the planet. But I'm also angry with white women because, they put Donald Trump over the top. And we have the Supreme Court that we have because of Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell. Mm-hmm. And, I think white women are really going to have to figure out for themselves, do they cherish their white supremacy more than their women's rights?
Yeah, because that's coming. And I heard, I hadn't read the draft, but I heard that they have included contraception in the draft. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Unless you're trying to stop people from having sex at all.
They're going all out. They're going full Handmaid's Tale. And I started to post this woman I'm falling in love with. Her name is Michelle Goodwin. She's an attorney, reproductive justice advocate, smart as a whip. And she has a book I hope we can read somewhere soon. She has a compelling story. I posted a interview that she did recently with Michael Moore. She was raped by her father and impregnated, I think at the age of 12, Black woman, but came from a kind of wealthy upper class family. And she just has a compelling story. So anyway, she was doing a podcast recently where she and another woman were talking about alternatives to the ways that you can, through telehealth and through the pill that they can now give you for a self-induced abortion, that they can send you through the mail. And, and they were looking at some of those alternatives, basically saying, don't worry, we're working on the alternatives. Okay. Yeah. But some of these states are now working on laws to outlaw you getting it through the mail. Or going to another state. So they just are going full handmaiden. They just really want to force you to have the baby, no matter what. Even if your life is at stake. That's the world. So anyway, we are so off topic.
Okay, now let's jump right back in with two things.
But my picture app is still not opening. Well, I don't know what is going on here. But anyway, I'm going to open the PDF. That's working. And let's do the reading. Because I found quite a few resources, a couple of videos and some articles and whatnot related to the weeping time. And let me see if I can close that. Don't worry about it. Okay. Bigger. Okay, can you see?
Yes.
You can. I know I'm the one that always can't see. All right, I'll start. So this is in the Atlantic, and I saved it as a PDF because I don't have a subscription to the Atlantic, though I wish I did. So you know how when you don't have a subscription, you might get 2 or 3 or 4 free articles, and then they start jamming you up.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to get jammed up, so I saved it as a PDF.
Very smart. Yes.
So it's called The Weeping Time, A Forgotten History of the Largest Slave Auction Ever on American Soil by Christopher Monroe, July 10th, 2014. 2 miles west of downtown Savannah, Georgia, sits a historical marker in a marker. Am I let's see?
Can you make it just a little smaller?
Yeah.
So we can get all the text in.
Yeah. Somehow I paused the screen share. Let me see. Okay. Can you still see the screen?
I can see it.
Okay. Why is it telling me that it's paused? Your screen share is paused. I don't want you to be paused. But you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it. It's the same size as before, so some of the words are cut off.
Okay. 2 miles west of downtown Savannah Georgia, sits a historical marker in the center of a small plot of a fenced-in city park. The triangular park measures not more than 1/5 of an acre. The surrounding neighborhood is one of the most distressed and depressed sections of the city. The marker reads, the marker was dedicated on March 3, 2008, 149 years after the slave auction occurred. And at the commemoration ceremony, then Mayor Otis Johnson, only the second African-American to hold that office, offered up a short speech honoring the enslaved men and women whose labor helped build the oldest city in the state of Georgia. At the ceremony, a local man handed out dirt from Nigeria to be sprinkled around the marker, and Mayor Johnson poured water over the dirt to consecrate the ground. And that's it for the city's commemoration of the event known as the Weeping Time. Contrast that with the towering monument to the Confederate dead that has stood for over a century smack in the center of one of the city's largest public parks. The Weeping Time acquired its name colloquially by the slaves and their descendants because of reports that the sky opened up and poured down rain for the full 2 days of the auction. It was said that the heavens were weeping for the inhumanity that was being committed. The event wasn't just notable because of the size of the auction. In 1859, the country was on the verge of a national bloodbath, and the historic threads that weave through the story of the Weeping Time are so far-reaching and remarkable, it's perplexing that more hasn't been written or remembered about this time. So see those 3 little dots, Gio?
No, because your screen is paused. So I think you're going to have to go out and come back in.
Okay. And now it says I'm screen sharing. Okay, so now do you see the three dots right here?
Not yet. Okay, all right. Now it's, yep, I see it now.
Okay, so why don't you pick it up from here, from Pierce to whatever the next three dots are.
Okay. Pierce Mies Butler, the owner of the slaves who were sold, inherited his wealth from his grandfather, Major Pierce Butler, one of the largest slaveholders in the country in his time. One of the signatories of the U.S. Constitution, Major Butler was the author of the Fugitive Slave Clause and was instrumental in getting it included under Article 4 of the Constitution. When Major Butler died, most of his estate and holdings were passed on to Pierce M. Butler and his brother John, including two sprawling island plantations on the coast of South Georgia, one that produced rice and one cotton, and more than 900 slaves who worked the plantations. Pierce M. Butler was a profligate steward of his inheritance, regularly engaging in risky speculations and accruing a considerable amount of gambling debt over the years due to his compulsive card playing. It was these two factors that necessitated the appointment of a group of trustees who, in 1856, seized control of his financial assets in an effort to return him to solvency. Over the next few years, the trustees proceeded to sell off various Butler properties. By 1859, the trustees were still unable to extricate Pierce Butler from his debts, and it was decided that the movable property on the Georgia plantations would be split between Pierce and his brother John, and the half of the slaves that were allotted to Pierce would be sold at auction to relieve his remaining financial obligations. A small fraction of those obligations were the quarterly payments Pierce Butler was required to pay to his then estranged ex-wife, Frances Ann Kimball, as part of their divorce agreement 10 years prior. In one of the many ironies, Fanny Kimball, as she was called, was an avowed and outspoken abolitionist and had made much of the fact during the time she was married to Pierce Butler. This difference was a constant source of contention throughout their tumultuous 15-year marriage and ultimately contributed to its dissolution. At the time they were wed in 1834, Fanny claimed she knew nothing of how the Butler wealth was acquired, but it soon became apparent after a trip to visit the plantations in 1838 through 39 what the true nature of the Butler inheritance was. Fanny Kimball was a revered Shakespearean actress from London on tour when she met Butler in Philadelphia. Kimball was, by all accounts, a strong-willed and independently minded woman of her own making, tendencies Butler aimed to tame. Nevertheless, they were married 2 years later after Butler's unremitting courtship, and Kimball reestablished herself in America.
Want me to pick it up?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Once Kimball found out about Butler's Georgia plantations, she begged him to take her down to witness firsthand what she previously only heard and read about in her native England. Despite his better judgment, Butler brought Kimball with him in late 1838 to visit the plantations, and what Kimball found was every bit as callous and horrible as she'd imagined. Kimball cataloged her stay in her diaries, which were eventually published some years later as Journal of a Residence on a Georgia Plantation, 1838 to 1839, and to this day is considered one of the most detailed eyewitness accounts of slavery during that period. Kimball's journals weren't published until 1863, in the middle of America's Civil War, due to custody issues with Butler over their two daughters. Butler had forbade the publication of the journals during their marriage, but once their daughters were of age, Kimball felt free to let her account of that time be known to the world. Her journals ended up playing a significant role in the anti-slavery debate raging at the time. Kimball was long out of the picture by the time the Butler slave auction took place. They were divorced in 1849. The most virulent phase of great slavery debate was only just getting underway. Just a few months before the Butler auction, the now infamous slave ship, the Wanderer, had landed at Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia with more than 400 illegal slaves brought directly from the Congo. This was one of the last documented slave ships to arrive in North America, and it created a roiling controversy. The transport of slaves from Africa had long been outlawed, but owners of the Wanderer, with the help of the pro-slavery fire eater Charles Lamar, disguised their ship as a luxury cruise liner and brought back a hull full of human chattel, thumbing his nose at federal law. Records indicate that nearly 80 slaves perished on the voyage. The crew of the Wanderer were awaiting trial at the time of the Butler slave auction, but the sentiment in the South was such that they were all eventually found not guilty and set free with impunity. This was the atmosphere surrounding what would be the largest slave auction ever on American soil. The notorious slave trader Joseph Bryan was enlisted to conduct the Butler slave auction, and it was originally scheduled to take place in Savannah's Johnson Square, directly in the city center, where Bryan's slave holding pens and brokerage was. But it was soon determined there wouldn't be enough room to accommodate the buyers they expected. So the location was moved to the Ten Brook Race Course, 2.25 miles west of downtown. For weeks before the auction, Bryan took out ads in newspapers across the South advertising the sale. It became the talk of the town, and speculators from as far as Louisiana and Virginia came to Savannah to ply their bids. One of the ads that ran in the weeks before the auction in the Savannah Daily Morning News read, "Sale of 440 Negroes. Persons desiring to inspect these Negroes will find them at the race course, where they can be seen from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. until the day of sale. J. Bryan." It was said that the hotels and bars were all full to capacity in the days leading up to the auction, and the city was abuzz with discussion about the great sale. Among the crowd was an undercover journalist from the North, Mortimer Thompson, who wrote under the pseudonym Q.K. Philander Doesticks. Thompson had been sent to Savannah by the New York Tribune editor and noted reformer Horace Greeley to report on the sale. Thompson posed as a potential buyer to get close to the action, and judging by the reaction in the South, once his piece was published, it was a wise decision for him to travel incognito. After great auction sale of slaves at Savannah, Georgia came out in the Tribune, it was republished in Philadelphia and London and caused an international stir. Threats on his life from public officials in the South were issued. They claimed the piece was an anti-slavery hit job by Northern abolitionists. In fact, that's exactly what it was. Okay, you want to pick it up?
Okay. Thompson extensively recounted the events of the auction in damning detail for his article, years later reissued as a sequel to Kimball's journal. He explains how, upon arrival, the slaves were stuffed into the horse and carriage stalls at the racetrack. As he writes, into these sheds they were huddled pell-mell, without any more attention to their comfort than was necessary to prevent their becoming ill and unsaleable. On the faces of all was an expression of heavy grief. He goes on to note that some of the slaves appeared to have resigned themselves to the hard stroke of fortune. That was their fate as human property, while others sat brooking moodily over their sorrows, their chins resting on their hands, their eyes staring vacantly, and their bodies rocking to and fro with a restless motion that was never still. When Thompson recounts the auction, he holds nothing back. But by its very nature, the sale of human beings is a disgraceful affair, and he describes the slave spectaculars as a motley lot, poking and prodding the chattel, pinching their muscles and checking the insides of their mouths like livestock, all while joking and making lurid comments at some of the female slaves. He goes into detail about a few of those who were sold, including a man named Jeffrey, who attempts to entreat his buyer to purchase a woman named Dorcas, his fiancée, only to eventually be rebuffed when the buyer finds out he would have to purchase her whole family to acquire her. Thompson also tells of a woman named Daphne who comes up for auction, wrapped in a shawl with her infant to keep the chill air and driving rain from them. Thompson describes the scene as men crowd around her, jeering and yelling to the auctioneer. What do you keep your nigger covered up for? Pull off her blanket. Another chides, who's going to bid on that nigger if you keep her covered up? Let's see her face. The men gather closer with remarks emphasized with profanity and mingled with sayings too indecent and obscene to be even hinted at. Thompson spends some 20-odd pages relating the events of the auction and its aftermath, including Pierce Butler showing up and extending a gloved hand to a few of his favorite slaves, and after auction, giving each of those sold $1 in freshly minted coins, as if that were consolation to the families who had spent generations on his plantations and were ripped apart on those 2 days. It's a shattering portrait of the realities of the slave trade and deserves far more exposure than it's had since it was first published, as do Kimball's journals.
Okay, I got it. The city of Savannah should be commended for recognizing this monumental event with a historic marker. But one small plaque in a remote West Savannah park doesn't nearly do justice to the memory of the people who were bought and sold so many years ago. Our country, particularly the South, is full of these hidden histories. And if we as citizens don't labor to remember these admittedly ugly episodes of our past, we're doing not just ourselves a disservice, but we're desecrating the memory of the enslaved people who helped build this country. The Tenbrook Race Course has since been obliterated, and there's now a lumber company on most of its former site. An elementary school sits on one corner of the former racetrack, but there's not a single trace left of the old course, and it's probably safe to assume that very few, if any, of the children who attend classes there even know what happened on those grounds a century and a half ago.
Wow.
And that is that.
I wonder if it's haunted. It should be.
It should be, yeah. And so yeah, that's a true story. And so I'm reading along in our chapters, and she gets to that part. And the fact that she's kind of spent so much time on it is what made me suspect, this might be a true story. And so even that story that she tells about Jeffrey and Dorcas is a true story.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you found that, because I wondered about that part, if it was just for dramatic effect. Yeah, but
Right.
it's real.
Right.
And what made me look it up was because it says Savannah, Georgia, and then the author's pseudonym. Is this QK, whatever, those sticks? Is this a real thing? Like, I gotta look this up. And then I backtracked from there.
And he was a real person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a journalistic James Bond down there, taking his life in his hands.
Yeah. And that Butler fellow, so he's the grandson of the Butler that was a founding father. But he was a mess, he's a gambler, a philanderer, and he wanted to try to beat the independence out of Fanny. He took their daughters away from her. He sued her for their daughters, their two children. Mm-hmm. And so once that happened, then she went back to England. She apparently was very famous, though, in her own right as an actress. And so that's part of why when she published, her book became famous. Yeah. And, and apparently it was very influential in the debate going on at the time. But yeah, and so Dostick published his article before her book came out, but he referenced her because apparently he had seen her journals. Mm-hmm. So, and she was born into wealth. And so she was traveling internationally as this actress, Shakespearean actress. And she came to the US, Philadelphia, because the Butlers owned properties in Philadelphia, a couple of other places. I think she met him in Philadelphia. And so she says that she had heard rumors, but she really had no idea about this slavery thing. And so she insisted that he take her to visit the property, Butler Island, off of Savannah, which is still there. And apparently the original big house is still there. And so she insisted that he take her. And once she got there, she was just horrified by, the reality of it all. So she started documenting what she was seeing. And apparently to this day, it's considered one of the most detailed accounts of what slave life was actually like. Again, why have I never heard of this book?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to ask. Joel went to an HBCU, and he said they're really on point. So I'm going to have to ask him if he's heard of this. So yeah, they give you that information.
Yeah. Please do. Please do. Yeah. So that was, and my picture never opened up. That was the big piece that I got out of this short section. It was a short section. But I have another approach. If I can't open, if the picture's not going to open, I'll open the document because I want to read the song. Okay. But yeah, that was the big piece that I got. Oh, here it is. That I got out of it, that the section was mostly about grief, and that the weeping time was this major period of grief because the slaves that were sold that day had apparently always lived on the Butler plantation. And so they broke them up into like groups of 4 or 5. And apparently if you had a very young child, they would try to let you stay with your mother, but the older children would get separated. And then you had to leave grandma and grandpa and auntie and uncle and all of that you had grown up with around your whole life. Yeah. But the actual title of Weeping Time was because it rained, right? It rained for the full 2 days that the auction was going on. So yeah, and it just reminded me of when I had moved to Kansas City in 1989. That's when I learned about Juneteenth, because it was a big thing out there. But coming from the East Coast, I had never heard of it, and so now, of course, it's a national holiday. But back then, it was not a national holiday. No. Yeah. So, it just makes me want to say, well, how many other things are there, that I wish I knew, that I would probably not live long enough to know. And this thing, because it's my mother's maiden name, so I called my big brother, who has done quite a bit of family history, to find out if he had ever heard of a Georgia connection. And he is not. As far as we know, the family, as far back as we can go, starts in Kentucky during the slave era. But when you hear a story like this, it could be that the origin is actually the Butler plantation of Georgia, Yeah. I'm hoping that he gets enthusiastic about doing some of that research.
Oh, wow. Okay. I need to get some tips from him.
Oh, yeah. He does it. He's really good at it. He used to work at the Library of Congress, someplace like that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So here's song 8 that we are focused on tonight. Need I add that I who speak here am bone of the bone and flesh of the flesh of them that live within the veil. The souls of Black folk. So I don't know if I can really tell you what I think that means or how it connects to Section 8. But I would say family, ancestry, I don't know if within the veil is a reference to slavery. But bone of the bone, think about Ailey and Lydia, flesh of the flesh. So I don't know. So I think this passage is something about family and ancestry. And so when you add in Ailey's grief and all of the grief that you were talking about between Belle and, the rest of the family. And then think about the weeping time. You know, I guess it's something about family grief, family separations.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some research on that phrase, within the veil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I read The Souls of Black Folk years, decades ago. It's a great book. And, you know, you maybe with like, this is not even a whole sentence. And so maybe within the whole context of whatever he was talking about, it would be clearer. But this little piece of it, I'm not sure. But I'm guessing that maybe it means slavery.
Yeah. That's a good guess. That's a good guess.
Okay, so yeah, so there are a lot of videos out there. I posted 2. One is like a 2-minute long, just kind of overview of the weeping time. The other one is almost a 2-hour long discussion by 3 people. I think they're all pastors, and they're one of them is a doctor who does a presentation on the weeping time. And so she's got a lot of pictures in there and a lot of the history around it. And then one of the pastors is a white guy. There's two Black women and a white guy. And so after she does the presentation on the weeping time, they have a discussion on the concept of restorative justice, reparations and restorative justice. And so that was pretty interesting. And what else did I post? I posted a link to Fanny's book. I posted some stuff about Mr. Dostix. And I posted some stuff about Fanny and Pierce and the plantation. So all of it is on the website, the book, the Reading Changes Lives, the book chat news page. And what else? Anything else in that chapter? I mean, I think
yes.
Okay, you really pointed out a lot of stuff. Huh?
Let's talk about the historical research that Professor Olandara and Ailey are engaged in, and how the professor told her to make sure she, after she's done, and this is just reading documents, to shower, pray, put on something white, or else, right? She didn't put that or else in there, but Ailey soon learned the hard way, that all of that pain and negative energy in these, what seemed to be, would be innocuous research, write words on paper, has a real effect on her. And I noticed that she already has a tendency to eat her feelings, right? You have this description of the meal she has. You know, I'm like, how big is Ailey overweight? What's going on here? But often when you've had sexual assault, you eat right? It's kind of you're trying to protect yourself by putting masks around you or quieting, the pain inside your heart. So, and then, so I picked up on that. And so this girl can eat, she can throw down, okay? But it was so, wow. I really appreciate the author putting that in there about how when you intake stuff, when you read it through your eyes, right? You're listening through your ears. And even when you go there, like they went to the plantation, you absorb stuff, good and bad. And if you don't want to take it home with you, you better have some kind of process to wash it off, right? And resettle yourself. So I appreciated, seeing that put in,
Yeah. Yeah, shower and pray. Yeah. And Ailey's just so disconnected from it all.
Oh my goodness. she wanted to beat up the tour guide because he had an attitude. Your people built this plantation. You should be proud.
But that too was interesting to me, how how Dr. Oladara was talking about how she goes to all of these plantations and, they never want to talk about slavery on a plantation.
Like, did you not know what the purpose of this property was? It's not just for, young couples to come and have a marriage ceremony.
Yeah, but
I don't know how a person could do anyway.
And the one that they went to, he was a historian, right? So you would think of anybody that would really want to be going into the details of it. But it kind of goes back to what you were saying about the Prager school app. They're just like in another universe.
Yeah, and an illustration of that in the text is when they went to the slave quarters, and one was like, you're imagining all of these slaves packed into this tiny room, but then the two other shacks, like they put some old furniture in there, like, yeah, they were comfortable. They had some jobs.
A gentrified slave quarters.
Yeah, like, ooh, talk about mystery going on.
Yeah, there was actually a lot of little stuff going on in those chapters. But it took me until almost the end of the reading to start to appreciate it, Yeah. Then you have the dynamic between, Ailey not speaking to Belle all summer, as a part of her group, really. But you also see that Belle still doesn't know about the sexual abuse, But I think it's in this section that we learned for the first time that Coco was also abused. She just handles hers differently, but still with dysfunction, Yeah. So there was a lot. Yeah. And Uncle Root, got Ailey that job. I like him so much. He's just as smooth as can be.
He sure is. And he can I'd be a smart aleck, but make you laugh at the same time. Like when they were gossiping, he said, "No, I ain't in this mess."
My name is Bennett. I ain't in it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Pass the chicken. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And just how he, he made Ailey comfortable. The fact that she's not working and is feeling, like a loser or whatever. He kind of put her at ease around that. Yeah. And then moved very quickly to set her up in a job.
Right.
I said, you are too slick.
Well, he's worked by this time he's almost 90, which I find incredible. And he's worked in a academic setting where he's seen young people go through stuff. He's been through stuff. And isn't it wonderful and so underappreciated when you have someone who's older and can see where you're going and then puts opportunities in front of you to help you navigate your life. So
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's the beauty of intergenerational communities. And so, Belle was angry when she found out Ailey was moving. And that's understandable because it came as a shock. But how wonderful it was for Ailey and Root to have each other, because he could depend on her for so many things. And, I mean, that's the value of family,
Yeah.
And then there's the thing with Belle and Diane, and the argument that they were having over where Belle thinks that Diane should be saying something about Lawrence dating these young women, and Belle's style of cuss you out, versus Diane's, I don't know, kumbaya.
Or live and let live. Yeah, we can do coffee. Yeah.
So, just how different people deal with their anger, all of that. But there was a lot. There was actually a lot going on in those pages.
There sure was. And I'm thinking about Ailey and Belle and how you go to church and you say hi to your other people, but you don't say hi to your mom until you're across on the other side of the field. Like, that'll never happen in my
Right. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have done that, but I know my mom used to call me, and she would never let more than a week go by without calling me. And she would always say, well, I guess I have to call you, because if I don't call you, you're not going to call me. I don't know how long it's going to take you to think about me. I'd be like, well, why don't you give me a chance? Shoot.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow. But that made me think about how we grow up and then we lose people. And we wish we'd said something, said so much. and we were just all in our feelings, instead of living for that day, right? Well, okay, that happened. I'm mad at you. Look, I'm mad at you. I could be right, I could be wrong. But let's put this to bed right now so we can keep on loving each other and having great experiences. That's a lesson I wish I had known when I was a teenager, right?
Yeah. Well, I did actually learn it as a teenager, because I was 19 when my dad died. And I was in the room with him when it happened, and I was living with the family when it happened. And so, I was always close to him to the end. But one of my brothers had moved out a couple of months before. He and my father had gotten into an argument, and they were not speaking. And I watched my brother carry the guilt of that, for so many years. So I learned my lesson through my brother's experience. And, and so I try. I mean, it's not always possible. Sometimes you're mad at somebody and you're just mad and they die and there's nothing you can do about it. But I try not to have a lot of that going on in my life, because, I have seen how it can affect you,
Yeah.
So, but at least Ailey was there with Lydia, they had reconnected at the end. It's a shame that Belle never got to reconnect with Lydia. And I was actually glad that this story was being told from a sibling's perspective versus a parent's perspective. Because I'm so tired of grief, Jill, you don't know. I'm just like, oh God, make it stop.
Yes.
So it was interesting to me to look at this through Ailey's eyes and Ailey's experiences.
That was a better. I agree with that was a better point of view, because we already know that Belle is feeling guilty and powerless, right? Well, her heart broken, right? One grief on top of the next.
Right. Yeah. So now, anyway, enough with the grief. I hope that they have moved beyond grief in section 9.
Okay. Well, Zulu keeps popping up asking about Belle, so I'm
yes, he does.
We're going to get a Belle and Zulu chapter out of this.
That's right. It's time to have some love in this book.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Gio. Anything else?
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay, section 9. I'm going to try to get back to being good. But I think we did good. See, I think that when it's just two people like us, because it's the two people that it is actually, that we don't need a lot of structure, that we can handle it. and I pretty feel like that with everybody that's in the group at this point. But in the beginning, when I didn't know who was going to be in the group, and I didn't know, what their particular talents might be, I just felt like we needed some structure to kind of keep it moving.
And that worked fine. Even Kim had to say when she moonlighted at another group, she said they were just so undisciplined. Because we had spoiled her, right?
Yeah, we had spoiled because we do the work.
Yeah, because we're all here trying to learn some things. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't be in the group. Look, we learn and we share.
Yeah.
That's what's cool.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I don't know how much I am going to produce for the rest of this book.
Hey, do what you feel like doing. It's quite all right.
And it's only because I had the nerve to get involved in this other book group at the same time. And we're almost done with that one. In fact, we should be done next Sunday, but we're going to reschedule it. So we won't be done until the 15th because next Sunday is Mother's Day.
Yeah.
So I will not see you before then. So happy Mother's Day.
Thank you, Michelle. And to you also. You're always a mother.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I know. And I'm certainly a grandmother.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Them little people, they'll be looking for you. Grandma, where's my blah, blah, blah?
Yeah. And there's a new baby in the family. My niece who lives in Hoboken.
Okay.
Just had a baby, boy. About a month ago. His name is Cairo.
Okay, nice.
And so I haven't met him yet, so I have to go meet Cairo, smell his baby head.
Yes, that is a thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And my brother is so excited because now he has a grandson. And up until now, he has only had granddaughters. So he's going through all that chest beating.
Yes. Well, good for him. I'm happy for him.
Yeah. So, okay, I will see you next Wednesday.
Hey, that's a date.
That's a date. Okay. Happy Mother's Day. Have a good week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.